What if? That's the question we are asking this week here at CHGO Sports. I'm Sean Anderson, got Stephen Nicholas alongside me to go through the top 10 White Sox what if moments in history. Welcome into the CHGO White Sox podcast here on Rank Week at CHGO Sports. Welcome into Studio B of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. This guy's new, Stephen Nicholas. He's not new.
I've been here, yeah.
But usually he's over there. Our, cracked producer, Mr. Football, Mr. Hockey, now Mr. Baseball. It's glad to have you back.
Mr. Swiss Army Knife. Glad to be here.
Right. A return to normal for you. Because I mean, this
is where it all started for me.
You know, not to brag here, but Steven cut his teeth, working his way up here at CHGO on our little tiny show, and now you're a super producer. So congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. We're going through the top 10 what if moments in White Sox history. Along with us, our producer Joey Christopoulos, who was alive in the '90s, thankfully.
What's up, gentlemen? Live in the '90s, and Rookie over here in Studio B as the producer. It's good to be with you.
You're not a rookie.
You've been doing more of these shows than I have now.
I mean, I guess is it your rookie year still?
Yeah, it's kind of my rookie year.
I mean, you've been doing. Because when did you start doing Big Ten? This isn't a part of the show.
Coming up on a year with you, my man.
Yeah, so I guess you're about to be sophomore year.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Congratulations. You're about to graduate.
Get my license.
On today's show, we'll be going through the top 10 White Sox moments or what if moments in White Sox history. We've been doing this with every team. Blackhawks were on Monday. Tuesday was Bulls? Today are Cubs and White Sox. And then Thursday is the Bears. On Friday, we are having the penultimate. I think penultimate is before the ultimate, whatever. The final edition where we will rank the top 10 what if moments in Chicago history on the CHGO Sports podcast. Let's just jump right into it. Let's start at 10. The Sox signing Manny Machado or Bryce Harper. I feel very strongly that this should be a lot higher. I don't understand exactly why this is 10. I put it a little bit higher, but in 2019, the Sox were interested in both free agents, Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. The Sox reportedly made a significant offer to Manny Machado, $275 million when he wanted to be at $300 million, but they tried to woo him over with John Jay and Yonder Alonso. And Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf may have, even though he missed a second meeting with Harper, and they never actually proposed a real offer to Harper. So interested in Machado and Harper. That 2021 team could have looked a lot different with either of them on that team.
They make the playoffs, but how much deeper could they have actually gone? You run into the Astros probably either way, but maybe you beat them.
But also, if you have Machado and Harper, it's probably not ending in 2022 or 2023 or 2024. I mean, the Padres are under a ton of debt right now as a team, but they're not failing because of Manny Machado. The Phillies are, still Harper is one of, if not the best player on that team.
And then the reported offer, I believe, for Machado was 8 years. So, I mean, you're looking at this going back to 2019. We're looking until 2027 at the end of that deal, assuming he stays there. Obviously, there's versatility there. We've seen Machado play shortstop. He wouldn't have had to have done that with the White Sox where Tim Anderson was manning it. We've also seen him play third. Well, that would have been interesting with Yoan Moncada manning that position. He could have gone back to second where he started with the White Sox.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing, too. In 19, they're free agents. That was the year Moncada ends up moving to third base and looks like the player that he actually is. So he probably ends up never making that switch to third base, staying at second base. Maybe that's what ultimately unlocks you on Moncada when he leaves the White Sox and not signing that 5-year, $75 million extension. Yep. I mean, that's the other thing, too, is maybe they don't give the younger kids those extensions because they're trying to keep them as cheap as possible. They don't give the $75 million to Yoan. They don't give the $88 million to Robert, or what could be $88 million if they somehow pick up the next two player options. I think they gave like $42 million to Eloy. Like all of that could have been spent on premium or somewhat premium free agents, and I feel like maybe we get a little bit better of a performance from those young kids where they have to earn that contract rather than here's $40 million. Go buy a butterfly sanctuary.
In a crazy way, the White Sox pinching pennies on these deals and not signing those players to the big deals like Machado with at least 8 years or Harper probably more, it ends up making them less fiscally responsible because of the deals they end up signing players to, like you just mentioned. So, I mean, you got to look at this from two different perspectives. One, the team gets way better, and two, yeah, your payroll might be higher immediately, but as you mentioned, maybe they make some smarter deals and don't pigeonhole themselves into another rebuild yet again.
Yeah, and the one thing, too, just looking at the Machado deal, he was signed originally from 2019 to 2028, and that was 10 years, $300 million. So the Sox were, around 275 for 8. He ends up getting that 2 extra years of kind of security along with the 25 extra million. But then he signs an extension with the Padres, and that's what ends up, is his current contract where it's worth $350 million, and that one's for 11 years. So, I mean, even the Machado deal, up until 2028, like, it's gonna be like 35. Right? So like that would have been a really great deal to lock up that third baseman for a very long time. It is a huge, I think, swing and miss for the White Sox. One of 2 teams that still has not signed a free agent over $100 million. I mean, we know the largest free agent contract in White Sox history is Andrew Benintendi at $75 million. It would have been a lot nicer to see Machado, them kind of put the seal on the deal there and get a cornerstone for your franchise in Machado.
Well, and then to move on to Harper, I remember at the time I was working at the United Center, and it was a really weird day when I'm walking around for my lunch, just killing some time, and I see on those electronic banners, "Welcome Bryce Harper," with the White Sox logo on there. And I'm like, what is going on? Bryce Harper is in here somewhere? And evidently Bryce Harper was at the United Center for his meeting with the White Sox, where Jerry Reinsdorf has an office. So, I mean, that was the other big what if for me is, we have a franchise stalwart that we can put in our outfield and not have to rush certain guys.
Well, right. But even then, I mean, he moves to first base. Like, he ends up moving to first base because of his Tommy John.
Could have done
right?
that, yeah.
But we still don't have a first baseman. I just swore. So I'll have to, mark that down as
what if?
We have to edit out. But we still don't have a first baseman.
Yeah.
Like, he could have solved any issue. DH, first base. We just need somebody to hit a home run.
Yeah,
and Harper could have brought tons of them.
We also rushed Andrew Vaughn to the major leagues. We put him in left field. Maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe
you trade him for pitching.
Yeah,
right? That's the other thing, too, is maybe
like we just did.
Right, if Moncada needs to move to third, maybe you trade him for pitching, or maybe you trade him for another elevated bat. Like, this team in 2021, if they sign Machado, does not look like the team in 2021 that you end up getting, right? Like, I don't think there is a Moncada on this team in 2021. And then you look at, 2022 or 2021, if it's Harper, like, you don't have to go out and sign Adam Eaton again. Like, that'd be great if he's playing right field next to Luis Robert Jr.
This what if devolves into like 10 other what ifs, and it's bottom line. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, the only what if I wanted to add in there with Manny Machado is in the 7 years that he's been in San Diego, he's played over 150 games 4 times, and it would have been 5th because technically they only played 60 games in the 2020 season. So when we talk about availability and a guy who put up a 26 WAR in 7 years, would have been nice on the South Side.
And literally, what's hilarious? Harper has played 4 150 seasons as well. No, sorry, that's Machado. Harper has played 157, 141, 145, 126, and 99, but then 58 of 60. Like,
good investments.
They both, since 2019, have put up 26 WAR. One's 26 WAR, one's 25 WAR. I'd kill for a 25 WAR.
The Sox barely won 26 games last year. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be a big difference.
Brutal. All right, let's move on to 9. The 10 one is it should have happened, and it's a huge miss for the Sox. 9, the 1983 winning ugly team winning the ALCS in 1983. The Sox had the best record in MLB in 1983, and then in the ALCS, they only won 1 game versus the Orioles. That's game 1, and then they lose the next 3. The Orioles end up taking down the Phillies in the 1983 World Series. Cal Ripken gets a nice feather in his cap at the future Hall of Famer, and then he goes on to play 2,000 consecutive games, so that's a different timeline. I know you weren't alive in 1983. No. I know I'm cosplaying like I was alive in 1983. Joey, you're a little bit closer to 1983.
It's going to shock you. Was not alive yet.
I think it's tough for us to make that exact connection like some of these people did, but I can at least tap into our pal Melissa, who is a huge Carlton Fisk fan. My dad's a huge Carlton Fisk fan, and she just came on and talked about that team, and it was just like, it was all homegrown guys, and it was all guys just kind of coming together in a single year, and it was just a great moment of unity. Fisk was an outside free agent, but really outside of that, I mean, it's Harold Baines making a major impact. It's Kittle,
Luzinski,
Brian Bannister's dad's on the team. Like, I mean, it was a ton of just monsters from that 83 team and from White Sox history that just were a little bit short. The team was fantastic, though, in September and October. They go 24-6 to end the year. That's absolutely insane. It seemed like they kind of won a little bit too much too soon. You know, like the 2005 White Sox kind of paced it out enough, and then come the postseason, 11-1. The 83 team won a little bit too much too soon, I think.
Well, the reason they get that winning ugly nickname, it was a name given them by the Rangers manager at the time because of the way they were winning games. They weren't beating down other teams. They were winning these games in really unconventional type ways. There are a lot of one-run victories in there, and they just kind of found their way to the best record in the MLB, and they ran into a buzzsaw in the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, and two, the one thing that you can just look up and down the lineup, Carlton Fisk playing pretty much every single game, 138, puts up 4.3 WAR. Tom Paciorek puts up 2.2 WAR. Julio Cruz puts up 1.9 WAR. Off the bench, Scott Fletcher puts up 3.6 WAR. Vance Law, 2.7 WAR. Kittle, 1.9 WAR. Rudy Law, 3.2 WAR. Harold Baines, 2.2. Greg Luzinski, 2.3. They just had a average to a slightly above average player at every single position, which is just kind of talking to their depth, right? There weren't really any holes in that lineup. And then, you know, the actual rotation led by Lamar Hoyt were able to, you know, win enough for the Sox. 4 pitchers over 2 WAR.
And we're doing the whole what if game here. I mean, this was one of those teams that, you know, what if they end that long championship drought? We're going to get to the 1919 team a little bit later. But, you know, you have to go back to 1918 for the last World Series prior to this. And they just come so close. They lose 3-1 in the series, but they don't make the World Series because of that. And you extend that championship drought an additional 22 years until we finally crack through in 2005.
Yeah, and, you know, I think it would have made 2005 a little less sweet.
Definitely.
But also, I wonder how it actually changes the team, because that's Jerry just taking over. Jerry just bought the team in 1981. I wonder if he takes success that early, if it changes anything about his business prowess at all. And also, it absolutely endears him more to Tony La Russa if they win that World Series, meaning his ass is absolutely coming back in 2021.
Yep.
So there you
probably
go.
don't fire him either.
Yeah, right? So you probably don't fire him. And Tony's probably just the White Sox manager for 50 years.
Yeah, that's a great point, too, as well, because we are going to get to some other events in the 90s where the White Sox might have had an opportunity to compete, but were halted short by ownership and contractual strife. So would have Jerry been less incentivized to maybe dig his heels in even more during that particular time if he already had a championship underneath his belt? I hate to put be a wet blanket or pour some cold water on this, but man, the winning ugly team got waxed by the Orioles.
Yes.
If they had beaten the Orioles, they did have to go up against the Phillies. Phillies team that had Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Mike Schmidt at the top of his game, Sarge, Gary Matthews Sr., and then Steve Carlton on there. And a guy that I'm not going to pretend to know before today, John Denny. All you need to know about John Denny that year was he won 23 games. It was his Esteban Loaiza year. Right. He never got another whiff of that amount.
It was like a 245.
Yeah, it was the charmed year of charmed years for the Phillies that year.
Hilarious too, because I go to simmatchups.com or whatifsports.com to kind of simulate the series between the Phillies, and it's definitely not tempting to just start Steve Carlton as your ace. Again, this guy is like the Hall of Famer of Hall of Famers. So it was interesting to see Denny have a lower ERA. But Game 1 would go 7-2 to the Phillies. Game 2 would go 3-2 to the Phillies. Game 3, 4-0 Phillies. Game 4, 4-3 Sox. Game 5, 9-5 Sox. And then Game 6, Steve Carlton on the bump versus Lamar Hoyt. 7-5 Phillies win. So they win in 6. So it would be a competitive 1983 World Series, but still we wouldn't be looking at a champion. I don't really have this much of a forlorning for this team. Like a very fun team and a very important team in White Sox history, but similar to the go-go 1959 White Sox. Close, but no cigar, and I don't think they were really deserving. Anyways, we got to take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast, right?
Oh, no, we got a couple more minutes.
Let's got a couple more minutes. Let's go to number 8. What if Frank Thomas stays healthy for the 2005 World Series run? He plays 34 games in 2005, hits 12 home runs, so he looks like Frank Thomas, but the fractured foot ends his season. Obviously a 2-time MVP, was expected to be the primary DH all season. Carl Everett mainly replaces the big hurt as the Sox DH, and then obviously the Sox in 05 go 11-1 in the postseason and break an 87-year franchise drought of not winning the World Series. So, Steven, I'll go to you. Obviously, the World Series champions. I don't think that changes the result, but what does it do maybe for Frank?
Well, it gets him on the field for that run that he definitely deserved. You know, he was the franchise icon of the White Sox, maybe all time if you have to go throughout the entire franchise's history. And it was really unfortunate that, yeah, he gets his ring, but he didn't have very much to do with it. You mentioned just 34 games played. He wasn't having his best season in terms of batting average at 212, but it's important to note that he tried coming back from the injury once, and he comes back and then re-injures it, makes it worse, and they had to shut him down. It was, you know, the fractured foot. And that's the season for him. He has to watch from the bench as his White Sox, the team that he built up to that point, takes it and runs with it. Best postseason run in MLB history to this point, 11-1. And unfortunately, Frank Thomas, the guy that you really wanted to see on the field, who earned his stripes there, doesn't get to be a part of it.
Yeah, and then Everett ends up signing with the Sox on he's traded to the Sox on July 18th of 2024, kind of, gets pushed up.
2004, yeah.
Sorry, what did I say? 2024? Yeah, there you go. I'm just stuck in today. But
you just wish Carl Everett was back in the league.
Right.
Because we all love Carl Everett.
Well, we don't know about that. But with Frank, it's such a poor end to his career in a way, because obviously he's going out as a champion, but unable to actually contribute to the team. And there was some talk this weekend as they were remembering the 20th year anniversary of the 2005 team, and there was no Frank. Even for Mark Burley, longtime teammate of his, statue unveiling, Frank puts out a tweet, but there is no Frank. I think part of it, and not in a weird way, but I think Frank is kind of sour on the 2005 team because he only plays 34 games. And that was probably his supposed to be crowning achievement as a White Sox player, and he's just unable to contribute to that team. And then not only after that, 2005 is just the end of his White Sox career. Kenny Williams says, stay out of White Sox business. We don't want you. We're going to Jim Thome. Frank Thomas is nothing here in Chicago. You go be in Oakland A. And what does he do? He goes and has a top 5 MVP season. And when he comes back to Chicago, poor John Garland had a pitch to him, and he hit 2 home runs. So just shout out to Frank Thomas for being petty like that. And he still had some good years in him, too.
Yeah, not just with the Athletics, but also with the Blue Jays as well.
3.2 WAR, 2.2 WAR. Obviously, there's no question that they should have went to Thome because Thome was a much better player. But it is a little disappointing that this is the way that his story ends with the Sox. I feel it's very similar to Walter's story with the Bears. Bears obviously win 46-10 in a dominant fashion, but Matsui scoring a touchdown, McMahon running in a touchdown, then Walter Perry, the refrigerator, running in a touchdown. There's a story told by Jeff Pearlman where Walter is not found for the celebration on the field. He is in a broom closet crying his eyes out, and his agent has to say, hey, you're going to be remembered as a whining something if you don't go out there and be a team player and be out there celebrating this with your team. So Walter had to go man up, even though he was just kind of depleted, that this crowning moment for his team, he really didn't have much to contribute. It was like 22 carries and 66 yards. You know, I mean, I think it's very similar to Thomas's plate in 05, where, you know, I don't think Walter looks back on that as his best achievement as a Bear, even though, you know, everyone else is like, that's 1985 Walter Payton Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, this one's really difficult for me personally because I love Frank. I think he's probably the greatest hitter I've ever watched, especially like in this town, in this city. He is my number one guy, but it's a blessing and a curse, right? That this team, the 2005 team, was not Frank's team. Even though he had 2000, I think it was 2003, 2004, he had a good year. Injuries were really starting to catch up with him. He definitely was more kind of a hunter. He was kind of hunting for balls that he could hit over the yard, and he hit 12 of them that year. Good for him. The only thing that I had to pull up really that I thought was interesting is against left-handed pitching, he did slash 281, 385, 688 for a 1072 OPS. Maybe that would have been interesting in the playoffs if he was healthy. There were some pitchers in that playoff run that maybe would have been a good matchup for him. David Wells, Andy Pettit, obviously Bobby Wagner during that time. But again, when you look back, that team was so dominant in the postseason, and I'll be honest, we had this before the thing. I love Frank Thomas, but Willie Harris and Pablo Ozuna contributed to the World Series run in the postseason. So I don't know, swapping them in and out.
Well, Carl Everett's just not on the team. That's what
correct.
Pablo Ozuna and Willie Harris stay on the team. Everett's just not on the team, or Blum's not on the
and
team.
Everett hits 235 in the playoffs, 18 Ks, 3 walks.
And that's the other discussion that we had pre-show was, Paul Konerko hits the grand slam in game 2 to end up tying the game. Podseknik obviously walks it off. But like, you're not benching Konerko after game 2,
no,
so it's just
he had too.
And then there's no
season.
There's no DH in Houston. So like, what for the next 2 games? You're just not playing Frank Thomas, or he's just a glorified pinch hitter? Like, that's also crazy. Just like the step down that Paul Konerko's the guy, and Thomas is on his way out. So it was just like kind of a weird ending for him.
We did do the exercise of game 3.
Yeah,
Frank getting an at bat.
the 14-inning game.
In that game, what that could have meant.
Carl Everett's the first pinch hitter for John.
Yeah, what that could have been and what that could have meant.
If Frank Thomas comes up, that might be a different story. With the short porch, if game 3 is won by a Frank Thomas 8th inning home run, come on.
Oh, that'd be legendary.
Insane.
The Sox did go wire to wire that year. Carl Everett, his WAR was 0.0, literally a replacement, just a warm body in that lineup. Granted, he did have fair share of 87 RBIs, but yeah, I mean that run gets that much easier if you have a healthy Frank Thomas for the entirety of the season.
Yeah, and hey, Frank Thomas had 26, so, I mean, Everett and Thomas combined, 100 RBIs, just like you'd probably see from Frank Thomas. All right, now we have to take a break, Joey.
Let's take that
Let's
break.
take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We'll be back with the top 6 what-if moments in White Sox history.
Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It's a one-stop shop for your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary with locations in the city, from Wrigleyville and River North to the suburbs in Champaign, South Beloit, and more. If you're starting out, Sunnyside has an expertly guided guidance and brands we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. Or if you're a pro, we've got you covered with over 100 strains on the menu and new ones added daily, expertly curated, including our Wellness Advisors Staff Picks collection. We know you'll love Cresco and Florical's incredible quality and consistent products. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. For existing users, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
Joey, what time is it? Oh, your mic is muted.
Game time, who?
There you go. It's Game Time Who. The place to get your tickets to an MLB event is Game Time. I used Game Time when I went to the Sox game this past Saturday. Not only were the tickets super cheap, $9, but I was able to get in and get this beautiful bobblehead. I needed the ticket before I walked in. I wanted to make sure I got my ticket before prices maybe even went up, so I bought it on Saturday. But I love the last-minute deals over at Game Time. You could walk up for a 110 game at 108 and get the cheapest deal possible. The tickets for these games go down the closer you get to Game Time with our friends over at Game Time. Use code CHGO20 for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use code CHGO for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast, recapping our first 3 entries into the top 10 what-if White Sox moments, and then we will get into the top 7. 10, what if the Sox signed Manny Machado or Bryce Harper in 2019? 9, what if the 1983 winning ugly team won the ALCS? And then number 8, what if Frank Thomas stays healthy for the 2005 World Series and is able to contribute to that World Series championship team? Let's get to number 7. What if Michael Jordan had continued playing baseball? Jordan plays with the Birmingham Barons in 1994 after retiring from the NBA. He joins the Sox, plays for their Double-A team. He hit .202 with 51 RBIs, stole 30 bases in 127 games with the Barons. He would then quit due to the MLB player strike in 1994, not wanting to be a scab player or even kind of a sideshow attraction. The minor leagues were still going on, but that major league season ends up folding after the All-Star break. So, he didn't want to cross a picket line and also didn't want to be seen as kind of an attraction for players that are striking. There was one kind of segment from a book by Lazenby covering Michael Jordan's career, and here's just some of the insight from that. Sox management, but what really happened with Jordan retiring was he was driven away from the growing sense that he would be used as a draw for spring training. He had absolutely no appetite to be a replacement player or worse, a scab. Finally, he packed up his father's dream for good and headed for home. He notified Reinsdorf in a call. I think you're quitting baseball for the wrong reasons, Reinsdorf said. Jordan said, no, I've made up my mind. Reinsdorf said, what do you want to do? Jordan said, I don't know. Reinsdorf confided later that he had hit 260 in the Arizona Fall League. I thought he was really making progress, but the strike had made it all about impossible for him to play for the White Sox in 1995. March 10th, he announces his retirement for baseball, saying that the minor league experience had allowed him to rediscover the work ethic and made him a great basketball player. Quote, I met thousands of new fans, and I learned that minor league players are really the foundation of baseball. They often play in obscurity with little recognition, but they deserve the respect of fans and everyone associated with the game. Jordan hadn't failed baseball. Phil Jackson noted that baseball failed him. I don't buy that. Like, there was one quote in that book that say it's all about repetition for baseball players, and if Jordan had enough repetition, maybe played in college, etc., he might have been a pretty decent baseball player, but he's not the greatest baseball player of all time, even if he continues to play baseball, right? Like, this guy maybe is like a two-war outfielder for like 6 years. I mean, he's not Michael Jordan.
The reality is, though, he hadn't picked up a baseball bat in 15 years. For him to pick up the bat and start getting those repetitions that he needed and to still bat 202 in Double-A, honestly, to me, that's incredibly impressive, and that just shows the feats of athleticism that he has. The 30 stolen bases, I mean, he had the 6'7" stride, that helps quite a bit. And just, like, think about this. If you go 15 years without picking up a tennis racket or golf clubs, like, how good are you going to be? Not very good. And the fact that he even did what he did and would have possibly had a chance at cracking a major league roster the following year, that says a lot to me.
Here's a stat line, and I'll just give me... Who do you think is better? This player didn't steal 30 bases. They only stole one, but they hit 273, 336, and had a slugging percentage of 399. That's in Double-A.
Yeah, that person's better.
That person's better? That's Tim Tebow. That's Tim Tebow as a 30-year-old in Double-A in 2018. Yeah. So, like, I just think that, like, the barrier of entry for some of these athletes is just pretty... Like, Jordan is a top echelon athlete. He could probably be like a pretty good scratch golfer, and that's why he loves gambling on it, right? Like, I just think it's about, like, you need to dedicate your life to a sport. And that's why, like, Ohtani, he could dedicate his life to baseball and do two separate things, right? Like, I don't think you can be, unless you're a Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders type, like, that upper echelon of athlete. The only person that we've seen do that is Bo Jackson to, like, an upper echelon degree.
Yeah,
I mean, Deion was like
star in both. Yeah,
I mean, Deion was a great cornerback and a fine baseball player. So I don't think Jordan could.
I think there were some flashes, and we didn't really get the massive sample size we would have liked to have seen with Jordan playing baseball. But he did have a 13-game hit streak at one point. You mentioned the Arizona Fall League numbers when you're batting 260. Yeah, there were some flashes there that maybe could indicate that he wasn't the 202 average guy. And maybe he was closer to a 250, which, once again, I mean, if you're doing that and stealing 30 bases, you could have a place on a major league roster eventually.
Yeah, and Neon, too. Neon Deion was a top 60 baseball prospect in 1990. So, I mean, he still had, like, baseball prowess. Like, I don't know if Jordan would have ever developed a baseball prowess, but he does. I think if he sticks with it, he probably plays in 95. Whenever they come back, they are absolutely shoehorning Jordan in if he doesn't feel like it's if you're avoiding the strike, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely think that if there's no strike pushing him out, he probably plays for the White Sox at least for a month.
Worst case scenario, you have a packed Comiskey every single day. That's pretty good for business.
Right. I mean, here's 7-game home stretch that Michael Jordan's going to play baseball for us. Like, I mean, the White Sox weren't that above promotional stunts. I know it was more in the Vec era, but I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf making money off Michael Jordan sounds good to him, huh?
Yeah, Deion played in a playoff game. You know what I mean? So he was like still like a guy. I'm with you. He wasn't an important player for them,
like
but he was definitely a cog for them for sure. I'm just going to keep this really simple. Thank God this never happened. Are you kidding me right now? Like, Jordan, I will never doubt Jordan's work ethic. And when you hear Terry Francona say that he would have worked his way into the major leagues, or Jerry would have just did it for the spectacle itself, either way, it probably would have taken maybe another year or two. So you're right, Sean. I think 95 is probably a great marker right there. So if he had made it, What does that mean? He's Jock Jones? You know, what's the ceiling for MJ, right? Maybe he gets to the point where he hits 10 or 11 bombs, drives about 60 RBIs in. I mean, it would have been this amazing two-sport athlete and this great story of determination and work ethic. But thank God this never happened.
Yeah,
he went back and won 3 titles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who would you rather have, Rock Reigns or Michael Jordan in 95?
Rock Reigns, baby, even on the downturn.
35 years old, 1.5 WAR, 285 average, but I mean he's able to walk 70 times compared to 52 strikeouts. Only steals 13 bases, but I mean would Jordan even be able to be on base 13 times? Probably not. So this one, I don't think it's that big of a what if. You probably just see more White Sox Michael Jordan jerseys than
Everything
right
worked out for the better.
Yeah, they won some titles. I'm happy with Jordan going back to basketball. He's pretty good at it. There was one story in that book too that at the final day of Chicago Stadium, Scottie Pippen had like a pickup basketball game to kind of like play in it one last time, and Jordan showed up and he dropped 52. Just like it was like 185 to 152 or something, but he took like 42 shots and made 24 of them.
Michael Jordan, you're a basketball player. Don't do that baseball thing.
Yeah, the way that Michael Jordan worked out for baseball was playing basketball. All right, let's get to number 6. The number 6 on our top 10 what if White Sox moments. The bottom 5 is rounded out by what if the Sox do not trade Sammy Sosa. They deal him to the crosstown rival Chicago Cubs for veteran George Bell. Sosa ends up becoming an iconic slugger with the Cubs, hitting 545 home runs in the blue and red. Sosa would have been paired with Frank Thomas to make, the Bash Brothers on steroids.
Yeah.
Or one of them.
Well, hold on. So that's probably the biggest thing is Frank Thomas, obviously not a prolific steroid user. I wonder if Sammy Sosa ever has that turn in his career. I wonder if not having a change of scenery and maybe feeling desperate where I need to take a performance-enhancing drug to reach a level of performance. Like, I don't think Sosa ever would have been 500 home runs on the South Side. I think he would have been more of a speed, 20 homer kind of guy. I don't think he would have ever been big enough. I mean, they list him on Baseball Reference as 6 feet, 165.
The original Panther.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's tiny. He'd have gained 40 pounds by taking PEDs.
Yeah, that's my size.
Yeah, right.
Right now.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big what if. I mean, they also acquired him from Texas too. So this was the second time he was being traded in his career.
I think it's an interesting one. I mean, if he does start tapping into that power without the steroids or the cork bat or anything like that, I do think it's a really interesting pairing. You could have one of the most prolific power hitting duos in MLB history with Frank Thomas, Sammy Sosa, and you also have the protection line of one protecting the other and like helping that out. Maybe he doesn't feel as pressured to take any performance enhancing drugs or anything like that, and he's just a guy that the hand-eye coordination is going to be there with or without performance enhancing drugs. It's just a matter of finding that barrel.
Well, yeah, no, and that's the thing, too, is he starts finding at least more consistency with the actual barrel and making contact, because the one thing that he had in Chicago was slug. The OPS, or the ISO, which is slugging minus batting average, was 148, which is pretty massive. I mean, a 404 slugging in 90 paired with a 233 batting average, a 335 slugging, which is terrible, but a 203 average. I mean, there is still some pop there. 10 homers, 10 doubles, 1 triple. He goes to Chicago, the Cubs, the next year, goes from a 203 hitter to a 260 hitter. So if they do keep him one more year, he was only worth 0.6 WAR, you would see a little bit more contact. And then in 93 is when Sosa starts arriving a little bit more. 33 homers, 36 stolen bags in 1993, a 4.1 WAR player. But it isn't until, 1996 where he hits 40, and then it is until 1998 where he completely crosses 45, completely crosses 50, completely crosses 55, completely crosses 60, completely crosses 65, and hits 66 home runs. That must have been natural.
Yeah, that must have been nice, too.
Yeah, he only did it 3 times. No big deal.
Yeah, he only...
I think it's important to note, though, too, at the time of the trade, Sammy Sosa was just 22 years old. So you mentioned the size. He's 6 foot, 165. Well, he hadn't grown into his body yet. This is a guy who's coming from overseas. This isn't like he's been on the MLB development path that we have today. This is something that he had to grow into a little bit. And maybe that was it. Maybe it was just him getting that size, naturally or otherwise, that he needed to get to become the power hitter that he was. As a 22-year-old, he wasn't fully developed yet. He was far from his prime at that point. he was about 5 years away statistically from an MLB prime.
Well, and I just saw a batting stance or a baseball card too of Sosa in '94, and he's got very much kind of like a Luke.
I was gonna say he
would
have
before the even like Sammy kind of tippy tappy backed and loaded stance. So I mean he goes through a ton of development, whether physically or even stance.
He was doing the Julio Franco.
Yeah,
who was
no,
on,
it's
who
really
was on
Julio
the
Franco.
Sox, right? And I think he would have learned a couple of things from Franco during that time. Like I think we all have to also say that like I think Sammy had a lot of swing and miss, but Sammy was also a good hitter, right? I don't think he was. I don't think he earned it all like the pure way or whatever, however we want to go about it. But Sammy was a good hitter. My two questions for you guys is the first one was Frank Thomas had a huge ego, and Sammy Sosa's ego was probably bigger. So if Sammy had come along the way that he did in 97, 98, as maybe Frank's star began to dim a little bit, would Frank have been on the 2000 White Sox? Would Frank have been on the 2005 White Sox at all? I mean, with the flaring nostrils of Frank Thomas and the kissy of Sammy Sosa, would that have been fireworks to the point where maybe Frank wouldn't have been on the White Sox maybe as long as we would have wanted?
I don't think that's actually a terrible question because honestly, I'm surprised Frank even stayed as long as he did with the White Sox. I mean, that was not a real good back and forth between the White Sox. I mean, I know that they really wanted him back in 2002 and 2003, so I could see them. You know, maybe Frank is just ditched after he becomes a free agent. I don't actually know when he ends up hitting the market.
I don't know. I don't remember the contract deals.
I could see them going for re-signing Sosa over Frank Thomas, and maybe Sosa just becomes that Sox a Sox legend rather than a Cubs legend. But that's interesting because I could see them just not going after it.
I think winning fixes everything, though. I think those guys are on a winning team and they're consistently going to the playoffs and maybe even making World Series runs. I think.
But if you do that in like '95, like if they win,
they signed Albert Bell in '97.
Yeah.
So like, imagine.
Well, if the
3-4-5.
If we're going back to or what if later is the '94 strike, right? Like that '94 strike team with Sosa in right field instead of Darren Jackson, and '95 instead of Darren Jackson, it's Sammy Sosa putting up 4 WAR. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting, but I don't know if they end up staying on the same team. I think Sosa might end up pushing out Bonds. Yeah, or not Bonds. Thomas in '95 post strike. Signed a 4-year, $42 million contract. That's Sosa, that's Thomas. And then 98 to take him to 2005, a $64.4 million 7-year deal. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they keep both of them. Jared had the pockets to keep both of them, but I don't know if they keep both of them.
Albert Bell probably never happens then because they already have
thank
Sammy.
God. No. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely they probably just pay Frank and Sammy. So, it's an interesting one. All right. Let's take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We will get to the top 5 after the break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast.
Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake is firing off fireworks with big savings all month long. Come in today to shop the Freedom to Save sales event and drive home with $10,000 off MSRP on new Chevrolet models. Or check out their selection of over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, they're able to keep their prices competitive, so you'll get a great deal. Plus, Ray's price promise lets you shop confidently because the price you see is the price you pay. Go see for yourself. Visit our partner at their convenient location right on Route 12 in Fox Lake. And don't miss out on their Freedom to Save sales event going on all month long for $10,000 off MSRP on new Chevrolet models. Shop Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com.
Did you mention lakes?
How many lakes?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Fox Lake. I'm just wondering because it's summertime.
Mm-hmm.
People are planning family trips, barbecues, 3-day weekends, 2 lakes. You know what doesn't involve or shouldn't be involved in your plans for lake trips, barbecues, family trips? Your overpriced wireless bill. Stop overpaying for your wireless bill. Switch to Mint Mobile. New customers right now can pay $15 a month for 3 months of unlimited data. Ditch your overpriced wireless bill. Make the move like us. You could be chilling both literally and financially. You like being by lakes.
I love being by lakes.
Do you chill by lakes?
Oh, yes, I do.
And then when you're not paying too much for your phone bill, you're like, great. Now I can actually chill financially.
This is me actually chilling at the lake. So much better.
And you're probably using all that data, right? You're probably looking up YouTube videos of like Luther Burton's, sophomore Missouri highlights.
CHGO White Sox, either one.
All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Ditch your overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service for Mint Mobile for $15 a month. Upfront payment of $45 required. Limited time new customer offer for 3 months only. Speeds may vary above 35 gigabits on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. Visit mintmobile.com/White Sox. Mintmobile.com/White Sox. Back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast, recapping the bottom 5 of our top 10 what-if White Sox moments in history, and then we will get into the top 5. I'm Sean Anderson. Alongside me, Stephen Nicholas. We're being produced today by Joey Christopoulos. Starting at 10, what if the Sox signed Manny Machado or Bryce Harper in the winter of 2019? Number 9, what if the 1983 winning Ugly Team won the ALCS and played the Phillies in the 1983 World Series? Number 8, what if Frank Thomas stayed healthy for the 2005 World Series championship team? Number 7, what if Michael Jordan had continued playing baseball? And what if Sammy Sosa was not traded by the White Sox and stayed with the team throughout the 90s? That is your bottom 5. Let's get into the top 5. Number 5, what if the White Sox don't trade Fernando Tatis Jr. on June 4th, 2016, everything changed. The White Sox were around 500. They felt like they just needed a starting pitcher to keep them afloat. And honestly, you've heard that Jerry Reinsdorf quote before being like, it's better to finish in second and give people hope. Feels like that's what they were doing. Felt like it was probably a good year to go 83 and 81 for the White Sox. So it was time for them to trade James Shields. As Rick Hahn has recently lived it with Matt Vasgersian on an MLB Network podcast, he said that originally it was supposed to be 2 pitchers for James Shields. So this deal could have never happened. There is an actual what if the White Sox just give 2 pitchers to the Padres, don't trade Tatis, and get Shields.
Yeah, just give the Padres exactly what they were asking for. Initially.
Sounded right, because Rick Hahn says the other guy that they didn't want to deal, it was Eric Johnson and somebody else. They ended up trading Eric Johnson. They didn't deal to somebody else. The somebody else didn't turn into anything.
Yeah, he said they didn't want to deal 2 pitchers is what he said. Instead, the Padres come back and they start looking through the Sox farm system and they uncover Fernando Tatis Jr. Whoops, Rick Hahn. Probably would have just given the pitchers away now if he could do it again. But my goodness, you look at the possibilities with this team with Fernando Tatis Jr., he'd still be on the Sox.
Absolutely.
They would not let him go anywhere.
Well, I wonder. I wonder because the Padres paid him.
Yeah.
The Padres didn't mess around and they paid him.
Do that. You're right.
I don't know if they keep him because the one thing that I think would probably lend to him being paid is the fact that he was such a star from the get-go. The fact that he was such a magnet of attention immediately. But then Tatis has his PED pop as well with his
season.
Ointment. So he misses a full season. I wonder if that then, if they didn't sign an extension before that, if they end up even messing around with him and signing an extension. But Tatis, what we've seen from him, his athleticism really doesn't limit him defensively. He was a pretty iffy shortstop. They put him in right field, and he's been like a Gold Glover. And
he he would have played shortstop or right field with the White Sox because Tim Anderson isn't going anywhere.
And was just drafted in, I think, in 16.
Yeah.
So that was, Tim Anderson was just their first round pick.
Yeah, Tatis debuts in 2019, and like you said, he's immediately a star. He's batting .317 with 22 homers in a pretty small sample size of 84 games.
Sorry, Tim was drafted in 13, just made his debut in 16.
So, yeah, either way.
He's
already, established himself in the White Sox by the time that Fernando Tatis Jr. actually cracks the big leagues. From there, he goes on to 3 All-Star appearances, 2 Silver Sluggers, and the rest is continuing history right now as we continue this season. He's having yet another great year, this time in right.
Yeah, and it just probably makes everyone else's job easier. It makes that team probably a little bit more fun. Moncada and Eloy and Robert are probably having a little bit more fun. Maybe they're having too much fun. Because
I was going to say, how swaggy is that team?
Well,
how swagged out is that team?
All those kids are under 25. And we've heard things about Moncada liking to go across the border at a party. So I wonder,
make music videos.
Well, yes, that was in a different. I think that was in Florida. But I do wonder if there is a little bit more trouble because that's a lot of young talent on a singular team, and I think that I think that they would have been at least more formidable. It doesn't crumble like it does. And if they had Machado, it definitely doesn't crumble. I mean, there's a world that they're the Padres. Dylan Cease, Manny Machado, and Tatis on a single team. That sounds awesome.
Well, does Rick Hahn still have his job if he nails Tatis right? Or, I mean, we could play that game with Machado or Harper, right? But if he nailed Tatis and he's got on his resume, I got a guy here who's a top 5 MVP candidate every year, and I drafted him. Does he still have a gig right now?
If they have both Tatis and Machado, he not only has a gig, he's probably like the highest you can get. He's probably president of baseball operations.
Yeah, something
he's
like
not
that.
just general manager. He's probably honestly getting the boot.
And the HBS are like, "We'll buy the team for this much," and Jerry hangs up and goes, "Go higher."
And that's the other thing too is like we just saw with their last year with the Jake Berger trade, Kenny going over Rick Hahn. So like that's what I thought would be maybe Hahn ends up getting promoted, but they probably just end up fighting over recognition.
Hahn
with each other. It probably just ends up becoming still a disaster.
Hahn gets a different job. He gets poached by somebody else in a Kenny Rick Hahn power struggle battle.
Because then in that way, that if he's about to get poached, I think Jerry says, Kenny, it's been nice. It's time to move on. Because Kenny at that point, like it was Rick's team. So I don't know about that. But if the Sox don't trade Fernando Tatis Jr., it's very easily that Rick Hahn is still a GM.
Well, if there's one thing that Rick Hahn
and Chris Getz is your assistant general manager.
Oh, God. If there's one thing we could say Rick Hahn did do well, it was rebuild farm systems. And at that point in time, it was the Braves, the White Sox, and then I believe the Padres were right there, ironically, as well as the top 3 farm systems in baseball. Keep Tatis and let him develop. Well, the White Sox have the overwhelming best farm system in all of baseball, and at that point, it's just player development and hoping things don't go the way that we now know they did.
Yeah, but also, I mean, like, was there much development with Tatis? I mean, it seemed like that kid had that exact swing, that exact confidence, that exact swagger down in the complex league.
I mean, he had a dad that could help him out a little bit too, you know? Like,
yeah, very Bobby Witt
goes a long way.
Jr.-esque.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is what happens if the Sox don't trade Fernando Tatis Jr. You're probably looking at a world where Rick Hahn is the overlord of baseball, White Sox baseball operations, and then Chris Getz is still the GM.
Yeah.
All right.
Rick Hahn was once called Baseball Jesus on the radio. Well, it didn't really turn out that way.
Who said that?
It was on the radio. It was 670. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was a thing. That was a thing.
Let's continue our top 5. Number 4 on this list. What if Big Jim Thompson, hadn't pushed the stadium deal through? Big Jim Thompson, a friend of Jerry Reinsdorf, and it's kind of a similar place that they are currently in right now. Jerry is kind of leveraging whatever, cachet he has in Illinois, trying to get public funding for a stadium. He was threatening back in the 80s, I believe it was 86, to move the team to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg was building what is now the Tropicana Dome to attract a Major League Baseball team, whether a team like the White Sox looking to relocate or in the expansion draft, which would end up happening in 1993, welcoming both the Marlins and Rays, if I have my memory correct, or the Marlins and
Rockies, and then the Diamondbacks and Rays were in 97.
Thank you. But then the final day of legislation, Jim Thompson pushes the deal through, keeping the White Sox in Chicago. The General Assembly approved a $176 million tax subsidy and subsidized the stadium, breaking ground on Comiskey 2 in 1989, and then ultimately opening that in 1991. What if this doesn't happen? I know you're a Chicago historian aficionado, but what do you think happens with the White Sox? Are they in Tampa, or do they still stay in Chicago if Jim Thompson doesn't approve this?
And I really think this was just a leverage play by Jerry. I don't think they were ever going to go anywhere. And I think we had the Nashville rumors a while back now too. I think this is just history repeating itself. It's funny though, if you actually go back to the quotes at the time of this, that final day at the legislative session, Jim Thompson says that, he's a super competitive guy, and he arrives at the doorstep and they say, "It's not going to happen, Jim. Like, forget it. It's not going to happen." And, well, he didn't like that. And he took that, as Jordan would say,
I took that
personally. Exactly. And, he went in there with the intent of, hey, we're going to push this thing through. Funny enough, it was actually stated on the news that day that they couldn't get the deal through. And at 12:03, I believe is the time, the news came out. Actually, no, we did get the deal pushed through. So it kind of makes you wonder a little bit whether or not they actually agreed to it before that legislative session had ended.
You wonder. I again, and two, you just wonder if Jim Thompson just kind of like did it himself. I wonder if Jerry had a fellow partner in Illinois like he does right now. James Thompson was the governor. J.B. Pritzker has been very vocal on not giving billionaires tax subsidies like this. So I wonder if he had more of a friend like Thompson and Pritzker, if a deal would happen now, but there's just no friends to be made. Pritzker is not friends with Reinsdorf. Reinsdorf has been around the block for a very, very long time. Pritzker is very new to Chicago, and I think that you can see a ton of distrust with White Sox fans and Bulls fans with Reinsdorf. I mean, people wanted the Jerry's gone when Reinsdorf and Krause were manhandling the Bulls in the 90s. Obviously, now there's been some issues with the White Sox, chanting sell the team for Jerry. It seems like Pritzker is taking this as an opportunity to be like, no to billionaires, but also no to a guy that has just gotten so many handouts. So this was a first of several handouts from the Illinois government to Jerry Reinsdorf. You brought up a good point, though, that the White Sox may end up then being like an expansion team in either 93 or 97, because you'd think that they would become the Tampa White Sox, or it was rumored to be the Florida White Sox. The A's are keeping, or the Coyotes are keeping their name in Phoenix, right? So the Utah team became the Utah Mammoth. I think that MLB would probably protect that White Sox name. Because that was the rumor now, was that if they moved to Nashville, the White Sox would be the Chicago White Sox and held on. They wouldn't become the Nashville White Sox. They'd be like the Nashville Stars or something.
I'd agree with you. I think that the branding would stay, and I don't think that the Sox would then automatically get another expansion team and they would be like the Rockies, the Marlins. But I do think in that next run of it, I do think they would have a leg up, because the obvious one, obviously, is Tampa Bay gets a team, and everyone would say there should be 2 teams here in Chicago. So I looked up the expansion draft that year, and I'm just going to read off a hand list of players. These are just what-if players to wrap your head around, whether you would have wanted to have them on your team or not. Left-handed pitcher, Brian Anderson. Okay. Right-handed pitcher, Jeff Suppan. Quentin McCracken. Ooh. Does Bobby Abreu get you guys going at all?
Oh, yeah. 2006 home run derby champion in Comerica.
Then the weird twist, Jorge Fabregas and Miguel Cairo don't count because the White Sox didn't protect them, so pour one out for Jorge Fabregas. Edwin Diaz, not the Edwin Diaz that you think, just an infielder. Dimitri Young, Esteban Yan.
Dimitri Young.
That's a name.
Yamiel Benitez, Vinny Castillo, Bubba Trammell.
Vinny Castillo.
Tony Batista. And let's see if there's any other here. Like Joe Randa, Randy Wynn. I mean, it would have been
Randy Wynn.
It would have been humble beginnings, to say the least. Damian Miller, also a catcher, ended up on the Cubs like later on, young in his career. But yeah, the one that I think of is would Chicago have eventually gotten a second team under new ownership?
I think so, because I don't think Tampa and Florida just specifically has been that fruitful for them. The Marlins have changed owners, I think, several times. The Rays have struggled to find a new stadium after Tropicana, and they've been notably
fans.
Yeah, they've been noted to penny pinch. So I think that Chicago would be I think they go back to. I mean, when the team is good, the fans support it.
Still
so
a major market,
Yeah. So, yeah, I think Chicago ends up a team.
And it's funny, too, when we talk about expansion, you just mentioned all the other expansions in other sports. There has not been one in Major League Baseball now for 28 years. So that would have been the last bite at the apple. Yeah. But so, I mean, it's a dodging a bullet, in my opinion. Because
expansion's rumored to be coming, though. Maybe Nashville, maybe Portland. We'll see. And hey, there's still rumors a year ago the White Sox were going to be moving to Nashville. So we relived this just 30-something years later.
Yeah, we've seen this one before, Jerry.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. He gave it one more try before he's done being the owner. Let's go to the top 3 of our What If White Sox moments in history. Number 3, what if the White Sox don't hire Tony La Russa to manage the 2021 White Sox? Following the firing of Ricky Renteria in 2020, the White Sox went back to Tony La Russa for a second stint with the team. They made a playoff appearance under La Russa in 2021, but then was forced out in around August of 2022 due to health implications. La Russa hadn't managed since the 2011 Cardinals team, so it was about a 10-year break for La Russa, bouncing around from the Red Sox and Diamondbacks as a front office baseball person. But this Hall of Fame baseball person was able to redeem his relationship with Jerry Reinsdorf and was able to redeem a mistake of firing Tony La Russa in 1986. When was that? 11 years before I was born. I still can't believe this was a storyline. That Jerry Reinsdorf
Hawk fired him in 85 or something like that.
It just seemed like a weird dream that you just never woke up from, right? Tony La Russa is so old. Like, what are we doing? 2021, this team just made the playoffs. I mean, Ricky Renteria at that point shouldn't have been a bridge manager. He should have been a guy that you took a serious look at as a guy that was able to motivate a team, something that didn't have under La Russa, and see how far you could take them with a lot of that young rising talent still coming up at that point. you know, you talk about some of the player development and what that ended up being a not so great locker room, how that could have stunted some of those players, like the Andrew Vaughn's, like the Yoan Moncadas, like the Eloy Jimenez's. And Tony La Russa, he's just a little too old to mesh with them. It just wasn't a good fit from the get-go when it was Jerry Reinsdorf trying to undo a mistake from 40 years ago nearly. Mm-hmm. It was the wrong time, it was the wrong place, and it was the wrong team.
Amen. And you know who knew that?
Everyone?
Rick Hahn. The ultimate announcing from the White Sox on Twitter is Tony La Russa with A.J. Hinch's signature in the background. How that ends up happening, I don't know. I need to find the White Sox admin that was running their social media in 2021 and find out that story, because it was supposed to be A.J. Hinch. 47-year-old A.J. Hinch, after being fired due to the garbage can scandal for the 2017
the
Astros.
Cans, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, this is A.J. Hinch after going 86 and 76 in 2015, 84 and 78 in 2016, then 2017 winning the World Series with 101 and 61 team with the Astros, then 103 and 59, 170, 55 in 2019. They won the AL pennant in 2019, getting fired and removed from baseball for a year in 2020. And it seems like the Sox had their guy to build a franchise, because you look what he's done with the Tigers. 2021, 77 and 85. 2022, 66 and 96. 2023, 78 and 84. 2024, back to the playoffs, 86 and 76. And right now, best record in the American League, 59 and 38. That was a guy.
Best record in baseball overall.
Best record in baseball. Thanks for correcting me. This was pretty much, in a way, Will Venable before Will Venable. You could have built an actual culture, something that they kept talking about and just making up over and over again was culture, culture, culture. I think A.J. Hinch could have started that. You see what he's done in Detroit. The White Sox missed out.
Yeah, I mean, if the selling point for La Russa was he's been there, he's done that, then why not take A.J. Hinch at 30 years younger and also not falling asleep in the dugout during games? Let's
been there and done that recently.
Yeah, much more recently, yeah.
Whose more recent World Series championship was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Or, whatever. Like 6 years after La Russa's last one. Like, it's absurd. They had a guy in his 40s. Like, the guy to take over.
Someone that could relate to the players.
And even worse, they picked the wrong old guy, because Bruce Bochy also could have been the other situation. They picked the wrong geezer. No offense to Mr. Bruce Bochy. I think the part also that I find also really infuriating is, let's be honest and just call for what it is. 2021 was a great season, right? Yeah. Tony La Russa was the manager of that. What did they do in the offseason to upgrade that roster and to pour money into it? If Jerry's going to handpick this manager and say, I'm going to right the wrongs, we're going to win a World Series with my guy, they did not go all in on let's say, Justin Verlander, which didn't work out that year. But I'm just saying they didn't go all in on some guys to supplement that roster that they knew was short, that they knew couldn't win a World Series, and they came back and it all fell apart. I get all the locker room stuff, but even the things on paper that they could have done, they didn't go out there and do.
Dude, what are you talking about? They added Johnny Cueto, A.J. Pollock, and Josh Harrison.
Yum, yum.
And I think was Adam Hazley. Yeah, Adam Hazley was on this team, too. So come on.
Was it
disrespect Hazley?
Was it the following year they went with, let's see, was it Joe Kelly? And
they did Kendall Graveman. Yeah, they went in hard on the bullpen.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Graveman was acquired in 21, though.
Yeah, they just loaded up on a-holes.
Yeah, Kelly ends up. When does Kelly come in? Because Kelly 21 too?
I thought he was the same year.
Oh, yeah. So then he was signed.
I think that's the same year that La Russa was hired.
Trade for Graveman? Or did they sign Graveman?
No, I think they signed Graveman. I remember they signed they paid like 24 combined on two relievers.
Kelly, Graveman, Harrison, and Pollock were like the big acquisitions.
Yeah, that doesn't scream going for it.
I think, was Lance Lynn a trade as well that same season?
Yeah, but that was 21. Yeah, that was they trade Dunning.
They extended Lynn in 22.
Yeah, so
that's cool
because he made an All-Star appearance for the Sox in 21, right? Yeah, so his first year was 2020.
Yeah, he wasn't bad in that first year,
and that was the guy that could connect with La Russa. Even Kelly had that kind of
played with him in the Cardinals.
Yeah, so do we have to take a break?
I don't know. We could just take a quick break, for an audio? No, let's keep rolling. Wow, I love it. Let's keep rolling.
We don't have a third break, so we're not going to break. Anyways, I think what if I think that the actual rebuild is a little bit more fortified. I think that you don't see an 81 team in 2022. You don't see a 61-101 team in 2023, and you definitely don't see 121 losses in 2024. So I think that you at least avoid the worst season in baseball history. AJ Hinch is able to at least stave that off. Yeah. And you are able to avoid the Pedro Grifol turn, Tony running into health issues because he's 76 years old. This was a mistake, flat out, shouldn't have happened. Rick Hahn knew it. The only person that thought it should happen is Jerry Reinsdorf, and I guess Tony La Russa himself. So,
yeah.
Let's get to number 2. What if the 1919 Black Sox scandal never happened? The 1919 Black Sox were looking to repeat as World Series champions. The 1919 Sox had 8 members of the team accused of throwing the World Series games. The 8 players accused of conspiring with gamblers received a lifetime ban. This would then instate the first ever Major League commissioner, with Kennesaw Mountain Landis being the first ever Major League Baseball commissioner. The White Sox then went 86 years before winning a World Series in 2005, had opportunities in 1959 and 1983, 1994 as well, but weren't able to deliver until 2005. The what if I find very funny, because what if those guys, were honest and good men and didn't have to, fool around with trying to make a good wage for themselves. Chick Gandil thought he was going to be out of baseball, so this was his last opportunity to make some money. $100,000 isn't, chump change.
I'll take it right
back,
now.
Back in the day.
Still translates.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it was a good chunk of change, and they saw it as an opportunity to make money because, who cares about your legacy when you could just make money? You already have a World Series too. So I think that, what if this never happens? It's more like about Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yeah,
rather than anything else about with the White Sox. Because it's like, yeah, they win another one, but Charles Comiskey's still going to be a cheap a-hole.
Yeah, and Shoeless Joe Jackson was actually having a really good series. Him being part of that was, one of those things that just kind of clouded in mystery. He didn't seem like a guy that was throwing World Series games. And the other side of it is...
Also, sorry, not 1918. 1917 is when they won. I don't know why I said 1918.
And then with Shoeless Joe Jackson, obviously, like, he gets kicked out of baseball. He never gets a chance to come back in. Ruins his career, ruins his legacy. And the flip side, we get a really good movie out of it.
Yeah, you get
2 good movies, really. Field of Dreams and 8 Men Out.
That's true. I mean, Field of Dreams is less Black Sox focused, I feel like. They're obviously a part of it, but I never was like, oh.
Yeah, Shoeless Joe is like the metaphor and the conduit to tell a story. And just really quick, in terms of what ifs, I just want to read this just really fast. On the eve of their final season series in 1920, the White Sox were in a virtual tie for first place with the Indians. The Sox would need to win all 3 of the remaining games and then hope for Cleveland to stumble, as the Indians had more games left to play. Despite the season being on the line, Comiskey suspended the 7 White Sox still in the majors in 1920. The Sox lost 2 or 3 games in the final series to the St. Louis Browns and finished in second place, 2 games behind the Indians, who went on to win the 1920 World Series. So it screwed 2 seasons.
2 seasons up. So there you go. And I think, again, it doesn't change much about White Sox history. They have another World Series championship. Not too many people bring up the 1917 World Series team or even the 1906 team when you bring it up. But I think it's just Shoeless Joe Jackson truly getting screwed. There are some players that through 32 years of baseball, like their 32nd age season, whatever, they're 32 years old in their final season. He is tied with Alan Trammell, Jeff Badwell, and Wade Boggs for career award up until 32 years old. And the only players that played in his era that were above him, Honus Wagner, Nap Lajoie, Eddie Collins, teammate, and Tris Beaker, and then Hornsby and Babe Ruth. So like he was like the 7th greatest hitter of the 20s. And it just his career's just ended. I mean, this guy could have put up like 90 WAR.
I pulled up the numbers here too. In that 1919 World Series, Shoeless Joe Jackson batted .375 with 12 hits, a homer, 6 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. That doesn't sound like a guy that was throwing a series to me. That sounds like something we'd kill for nowadays.
Yeah, right?
And I think that dude Chick Gandil had like 4 errors at first base. There's some stuff out there where there are guys that not only played poorly, but then you could easily lead yourself into believing that they were trying to lose these games.
And then Lefty Williams is threatened with his wife is threatened to be killed, and that's why he ends up throwing Game 6. So
this is another one too, as well as I'm not trying to obfuscate these guys from what they did, But from like the Ken Burns documentary and back in those days, the owners and the cheating and the gambling was so rampant in baseball. And the what if that I always kind of think about this stuff is, if something like this doesn't happen, does the America's greatest game, does it get poisoned? You know, without this heavy hammer coming down on these 7 players, does baseball go down the tubes? And does it become this sport that maybe is rife with gambling and people cheating and stuff? And does it become the great game that we know and love through the 40s, 50s, and 60s before that course correction again with Pete Rose in the 70s?
I think so.
Course correction steroids in the 90s, you know?
You obviously have the gamblers waited out, and that's the funny thing is, like, we got to get the gamblers out, not pay these guys decent wages so they don't have to gamble. You know, hey, let's make them take 12-hour bus rides to go play games in like their dirty uniforms that we're not paying to wash. But yeah, I think that, you know, it's around Prohibition time in 29 when Ruth really starts making an impact on culture. So I think it's probably just in line with Prohibition, taking away most of gambling and alcohol and kind of like the seedy parts of America that was bubbling up.
America got grounded. Like, literally,
Yeah, right.
America got grounded. Got put in a timeout for a little while.
A little too crazy.
We are now out of control.
ungrounded.
Freedom's a little too much, guys. Shoeless Joe Jackson finished tied for 26 all time in most triples, 5,697 at bats. The only person that was close to him, Buck Ewing, 5,772 at bats with 178. But Jackson played in 5 less seasons. The only other player that was like closest in amounts of seasons played was Harry Stovey with 176 triples, but he had nearly 1,200 more at bats. So if you just give Shoeless Joe Jackson like 1,200 more at bats, 2,000 more at bats, this guy probably is one of 8 players to get to 200 plus triples.
Yeah, in a time where players could play way longer than we see now.
Well, and triples were like the home runs back in the day. So, I mean, this guy was like a stud. Yeah. All right, let's get into number one. The number one what-if moment of all time in White Sox history is, what if there was no strike in 1994? Your Chicago White Sox were the best team in the American League in 1994. They go 67-46, but then ultimately the season is shut down pretty much a little bit after the All-Star break in August. The Sox and the players strike. There is no season to continue. There is no 1994 postseason ever played, and it leads into Joe, can you flash the graphic on the screen one more time? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm reading that. The players' strike canceled the World Series, and then the championship obviously would have cemented the legacies of the guy you see right there, Frank Thomas. Even though he wins the 2005 World Series, as we talked about, it wasn't really his team. So what if the Sox have that 1994 team? I have a kind of crazy take, but I'll let you be, rational-ish.
Well, I mean, we're still looking at that long World Series drought. It takes some of the fun away from 2005 that later obviously happens. But I mean, that was probably prime Frank Thomas. He's coming off 2 MVP seasons at that point. He is the face of the franchise, undoubtedly. And that just gets robbed from them. Like, they were on that championship trajectory at that moment, and it was just something that was completely out of the players' control, unless they didn't strike, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things we'll never know about. And it's for White Sox fans, especially living in that era. It's got to be one of the biggest gripes they have with sports in that moment.
Yeah, and I think, too, if they're able to win in 2005, that's 2 championships in 11 years. And while
that's
it's
good.
not,
that's good.
6 titles in 8 years or whatever the Bulls did, that I think is a huge impact on Chicago. And I think to the point where if you have Frank Thomas winning a championship in 2005 and 1994, he's likely the AL MVP in 94 as well. Mm-hmm. I think that
he had gone back-to-back, so 3 in a row would have been tough, but I'm with you. I'm with you.
I think that they're probably the biggest. Well, he actually wins at 94 anyways.
Right.
But playing a full season. But I think that if they win the World Series in 94, this team's bigger than the Cubs. Even if Sosa ends up having his 60 homer season and whatever, and they save baseball in 1998, I still think that the Sox are the team of the American League in the 90s, because there wasn't. The Yankees end up taking over, but the Yankees really didn't have anyone competing with them. The Mariners kind of pick up in 99 and the 2000s, but I think that the Sox could have been the Mariners, but even just a skosh better than what the Yankees had to face in the late 90s. So I don't think the Yankees win 4 titles in the late 90s if the White Sox are around.
It's fair to question if, Frank Thomas and this White Sox team were one of the teams that influenced these other teams to start taking performance-enhancing drugs to try to keep up with them. I mean, Frank Thomas never connected with performance-enhancing drugs. Other teams' players suddenly start putting up the same numbers he was, which were practically unheard of at the time. And, the rest is history with the 90s and early 2000s. The game kind of gets tainted a little bit, and it becomes like kind of a black eye on the sport, so to speak.
Oh, I mean, I still think the reverberations of the 94 strike are still felt today. So first of all, with the 94 strike, Matt Williams, Ken Griffey Jr., and Frank Thomas all were on pace to break Roger Maris's home run record. Tony Gwynn was trying to hit 400 that year.
Right,
At the time of the strike, he was hitting 475 in August. He was going to get damn close if he wasn't going to. And Sean, you mentioned it before the show. The most likely competitor, or maybe the World Series opponent, would have been the Montreal Expos. Right. And if they even, let's just say, beat the White Sox in the 94 World Series, do they keep their franchise? Do they stick around? I mean, the 94 strike is absolutely brutal. And Steven, to your point too as well, one of my best pieces of memorabilia, someone in the White Sox organization, including the players, they all thought this was happening, and Jerry Reinsdorf simply just didn't send them the memo. Because I have in a frame 1994 World Series White Sox World Series tickets printed out and ready to go with opponent TBD on them for a World Series that the White Sox organization thought that they were going to, and I personally thought they were going to, and winning. Toronto Blue Jays, they had their run. It was over. It was the White Sox time.
You have a fake 1994 World Series?
They're real. No, they were real. They're printed out by the White Sox organization.
It's fake because it's not real.
Yeah. But I have ALCS and World Series White Sox tickets in 1994 versus opponent to be named later.
You gotta send
That's how sure the White Sox were. Now, I have it in a big frame at home.
Is that one of those things that they would send to season ticket holders just in case?
They had them ready to go.
Wow.
Ready to roll. That's how sure and confident that they were that the White Sox, it was the White Sox time. And Sean, man, that's such a great point, man, that if they win that World Series with Frank Thomas, who already had a video game and a shoe and was one of the biggest stars, not just in baseball, but in probably America, the White Sox probably do take a bigger stranglehold, if not the stranglehold, over baseball in this time.
In the 90s is like the return of black and white, right? So like that was
good guys were black, man.
Their impact on culture, hip hop. I mean, everyone in hip hop is wearing a black White Sox hat, and it's
all that's missing was the championship to match it. Yeah,
truly. I mean, and it could have that easily could have been probably a team that was bigger than the 05 White Sox. If they're able to win. I mean, like we cannot shut up about that team, but I mean the 94 team probably would have been like the team that nobody ever shuts up about if they were able.
And Ozzy's got 2 rings.
And Ozzy's got 2 rings.
Wow, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. And
if he gets a ring in 94, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, he definitely has his jersey retired by then. All right, we do have a couple honorable mentions. Steven's pulling up one. I also have another one. There's one that is related to A-Rod and Nomar and Manny Ramirez. So Manny Ramirez could have become I believe it would be Ranger. A-Rod would have been a Red Sox. And then to move money, the Red Sox would have traded Nomar Garciaparra to the White Sox. So in December 2003, the Rangers, desperate to get out of A-Rod's contract that they just signed, agreed in principle to trade with the Red Sox. They needed a third team to make money work. That team would be the White Sox. The proposed 3-team trade would look like this. The Red Sox getting A-Rod and Maglio Ordonez from the White Sox. The Rangers would get Manny Ramirez from Boston and other players and prospects. And the White Sox would get Nomar Garciaparra and a prospect. The deal ultimately fell apart when the Players Association vetoed it because it required A-Rod to restructure his contract and take less money. So the PA was like, no, you're not effing doing that. You got a record contract and we're not going to walk back that ever. But thank God the White Sox don't get screwed, because if they trade, I mean, Mags walks for nothing, but like you trade Mags for Garciaparra and just like a prospect.
2005 World Series up in the air, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair point. Nomar Garciaparra, he was still good at that point. That 03 season, I'm looking at it right here. He had,
but he started breaking down in the lower half, the wrist.
Yeah, that would have been 04 though. It would have been like the 03 offseason. So it would have been like right when he was about to like completely fall off, because then he gets traded to the Cubs in that offseason, and he's okay, 297, 364, 455.
Power's gone.
The power's pretty much gone. So, Nomar was a great name, and everyone probably would have owned a Garcia Parra jersey, probably would have went platinum in the streets, but I don't think it would have made much of a change. It honestly probably hurts the 05 team, as you mentioned there, Joey. The other one, though, is, who's really good friends with Jerry Reinsdorf? Calls him his own personal rabbi? Alex Rodriguez. If the White Sox signed Alex Rodriguez in 2001, how does that change everything? Because there is absolutely a world where Jerry Reinsdorf, if he was better friends with Alex Rodriguez in 2001, they were a part of the Rangers bidding war along with the Yankees and Red Sox. The White Sox were a part of that group. Like, that could have been the first superstar that they end up nailing down in this ultra contract year, but Jerry didn't bite off take a bite of that apple. And I wonder if he signs A-Rod then, if that leads to Machado and Harper and maybe a little bit more of an ability to give into superstars.
A big part of Jerry's legacy on both franchises is the not being able to have the fish on the hook, but you can't reel it into the boat. And we've done Alex Rodriguez and Manny Machado, and we've done Bryce Harper. And if you want to go to the Bulls side, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Tracy McGrady, Tim Duncan.
And we get them when they're done. We get them when they're 36.
Well, that's when we got Manny Ramirez.
Well, and that's when they were.
Ken Griffey Jr.
They were talking about when A-Rod retired. He retired at 696. There was talks of him and Jerry getting him to suit up in a White Sox uniform to get to 700.
There's still time, Jerry. There's still time.
Hey, Burley said he felt good throwing pitches for the statue.
I did see this.
So maybe Burley and A-Rod are a part of the 2020-16 team. What if?
Oh, God,
that's our number 11 entry. What if A-Rod and Mark Burley return for 2026?
Nostalgia would be great. Results would be terrible.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much for nostalgia for A-Rod returning for the White Sox.
I would watch that. I promise I would, yeah.
Anyways, that's going to do it for the What If for the Chicago White Sox. We hope you enjoyed our top 10. Let us know what we possibly missed, what you would like to add on. Did we miss anything with this 94 talk, this 1983 talk? This is our cracked producer, Stephen Nicholas, Mr. Football, Mr. Hockey, Mr. Baseball. He does it all here at CHGO. Thank you to Joey Christopoulos for producing and pitching in to this episode as well. Somebody that was fairly tainted by the 1994 MLB strike.
Oh, it burns me to this day.
Yeah, I know. I talk about it all the time. And now I got to see those tickets. Let us know what we missed in our top 10 What If moments in White Sox history. I'm Sean Anderson. We will talk to you on Sunday for a recap of the Pirates-White Sox series. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.